Today we're going to discuss something called source control, and it's a problem that um, it's kind of like it's a very long-lived problem in when you're mucking about with source code and code in general. So by the end of this lesson, I want to try and get across what version control is and why it matters. We're going to show you how to initialize a Git repository, and we're going to show you how to stage and commit changes, view the repository history, and understand basic Git workflow. So let's start off in our example. Let's create a folder in our source control. Oh, sorry, in our code directory. So if we went to see users, my user's called Dade, and I have a source folder, and in here we're going to have a new folder called Git examples. So this is going to be our pretend source code. Okay, and then we're going to open that folder in Visual Studio Code. So we should see a folder with nothing in it, basically. So we go source, Git examples, select folder. Okay, close down that agent window. So here we can see we've clicked on this Explorer window here. We've got no files in here. Let's start up a little bit of a terminal as well, so we can interact with the terminal at the same time. Okie dokie. So in here, let's create. So what's the issue here? So if we've got like a simple script, and we'll make it a simple batch script, and we'll do, if you remember, a little simple script of hello world. And then if we want to run that script, there we go. So we can see there that Visual Studio Code has run it. It's a bit weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to run that script. Simple script.cmd. So the issue with source control is if we want to use our scripts as a basis for other, or adding functionality, but we want to make sure that we don't lose the original script. People would often do something like this in the past. And if we paste that, in fact, I could just leave it as .copy and then I'm going to make some changes. Again, so, and then we can run the new version of the script. Okay, we can see the new version. So we've got both copies of the script. Now, many coding projects have tens, if not hundreds, of little text files that could all be changing at once. And they all rely on each other to be a certain version or with certain things inside them. How do you then manage all of that complexity? Well, what we do is we use the tool called Git, which is a source control version system. And you can think of it like it's able to track all of your changes through your entire project. It's a bit like a save state. When you're playing a computer game, you got to a certain point in your code, you want to save where it is, save that exact kind of version of that thing, and then off you go. And you can always return to that version if you break something. Git also helps you work with other teams, but we'll get to that probably on another lesson. I don't think I'm going to do that here. So what would you do? What would you do if we just had this one file then? So we'll get rid of that original file. We'll clear that down as well. Okay, so we've got our original file. currently not tracked via Git. And what we're going to do is we're going to initialize a repo. So if we go git init, that then creates this full subfolder inside Git examples. That means it's now being tracked by Git. And the other thing that you can see, Visual Studio Code has changed here in that now you can see, oh look, there's a master here. Okay, and that's because when you start using Git to start off with, everything is tracked on a main or master branch. So in this particular instance, it's master. And you can, again, branches is something that will help further on down the line. We may get to that in this lesson, I'm not sure. We'll see where we get to. But for this, so we've initialized our Git repo. So that now means that Git is tracking all changes in this folder. You can see here that this file has gone green and there's got a U at the end of the line here, and that means it's untracked. So what we want to do is we're going to add our file to staging. I'm going to go through the staging concept in a second, but this is just to show you the like a first, what does a first Git commit, first Git change look like. So we're going to add that file. The dot means add all files that have changed in the current folder. Usually, current folder usually indicated by a dot. And then we have these things called commits. Commits are like your bookmarks to each change. And I like to, so everything in the quotes is kind of like it goes into a log of what's changing. So I can put anything in here. Called simple script. Okay. So what does that mean? In terms of what's gone on here. What this means is Git has scanned the changes that you've made and then done a mathematical operation to give it a hash, and then that hash is always will refer to that particular change that we just added. So it will always, if I was to go back to that change, I would always see simple script at this version. So what I might do is, let's stick in a rem comment. This is version 1 of this file. Okay, because it's gonna help me demonstrate the versions of that. So I'm gonna add that as well. So this is now my second commit. Minus m beat commit to add a you can be as verbose as you want there. Now if I do a git log -1 line, there we can see I have 2 commits. Okay, so I can go back to the original one or the second one. This topmost one is the most current version of that file. And if I right click on here and I go open timeline, so here you can see the timeline of this file, and these little circles with the 2 lines, that shows that it's a git commit. So I can click on that and it will show me in this right hand window, that's the changes I made to the original, that's my original commit. And then if I go to the second one, there you can see, because Git's quite clever, it showed you that I've added these 3 lines and it's in green. It shows you this extra bit of the text file that we added. Cool. So I can go backwards and forwards in time to whichever version of the script that I want. That's pretty cool. So that this concept of staging and committing. So here I've got a bit of a how Git works example. And if you go to this website, you can try this yourself. Your working directory is essentially this. Let's get rid of these. Compare windows. Your working directory is this in the simplescript.cmd, and in my master branch, that's my working directory. And then, this is kind of like a simulator, as it were, for Git without having all of the Visual Studio stuff. But what it's trying to show here is that if I start the workflow, so the first thing I'm going to do is, so in my working directory, I've just got index.html at the moment. I can do a git add for any changes because there's nothing been staged yet. If I do a git add, then that goes into staging. So we're now ready to commit. And then we can, like we saw in my demonstration, we can put a command, we can put a comment in, click the button, and then I can add more files. So now we can, this style.css wants to get added. And I can continue adding style file. So there you can see, as I'm committing, they go into the repository at a certain each version is stored in the repository. Okay, so this is why we've got working directories, staging areas, repositories. Remember, the working directory is where you edit the files, and you can, where it says changes here aren't saved, they are saved if you saved them using Visual Studio Code, but the version of that file isn't saved in the repository. Staging files are like, I'm getting all of these files ready to commit, ready to go into the repository. Now, the reason why I can do more than one git add at once. So say, for example, all right, I'm going to create another file here, another .txt, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could do git add dot not commit it, but then if I have another file, 456, I can add that file as well. Oops. Okay. And then if I do a git status, this will show me what's going on in my staging situation. So here it's saying, so in this orange box, in this staging area, I've got two files, another .text and another .text ready to be committed. So I'm now batching up the changes that I want to do inside Git. So if I do this, git vomit, git commit -m, added 2 text files. Okay. And then now we can see that those two files are now, they're both in the working directory and in the repository. Now, if you want to see a bit more of a better timeline to this, in Visual Studio Code, there's a Git visualizer, and we can go click on source control here. And here you can see the user interface that shows you the history. So here we can see my first commit with just simple script. My second commit modified that, M for modified. And then my third added these two text files, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. So there you can see I'm basically versioning the folder, everything inside that folder at different stages through my development. So that's why, that's the kind of the basic concepts of Git. Okay. Why Git though? What is this command? So Git, everybody seems to have reasonably standardized on Git as a source control mechanism. There's lots of other different ones. Going back many years, there's source safe and clear case. today there's Bitbucket and SVN and Mercurial, and there's loads of different ways. They all do more or less the same thing in that they stage some files and then they batch them up into a change to make it easy to share code at different levels of versions. Git itself works locally, so you don't need the internet for it. We'll have another lesson on GitHub and how Git interacts with GitHub at some point. It's free and open source, and it tends to be industry standard. So, like I said, it's a bit like a save point in a video game. I treat it very much as such. So there we've done a bit of a demonstration. We've showed you how to do kind of like the basic workflow: git status, git add, git commit. We've showed you git log. Git logs really. So like on the command line, if you don't have the Visual Studio or in your terminal, you can go back to git log --1 line. And there you can see the 3 commits that we did. And then if you just did a git log, it would give you more information. You know, dates and times and the commit shars and stuff, these commit hashes. All right. So there we showed you the very basics of Git. Now let's move on to a bit more of a working example. Let's go to our Python code. Right, so let's open our Python Hello World app. It's in our source folder, Python Hello World. Okay, I've got one server.py file here, which if I click on it, I can go and have a look at the source code. Here we can see we've set it up so that if Python receives a response of the right sort, it'll respond with this web page source code. And this is the bit of code that is running the server. Right, so once we run that, so if we do Python 3, py, you can see this here, it's showing that it's running. And then if you hover over this, it shows you a little bit of a tip to control and click. So if I control and click this, I see Hello World running. Okay, well, what about if we want to change it and save those changes as a git in a git way? Okay, so first we'll close down that script. Sometimes takes a little bit of time. We'll just close that. All right, we're gonna Hello World version 2. Then we'll open up another terminal. New terminal. Okay, so if we do a git status, it shows us that that error message says that we're not under Git. So the first thing we need to do is git init. That initializes our repository. Now I want to save the state where it is at the moment, so I'm going to add. Actually, let's do my change. Let's save the original. Git commit -m beat initial. So this is my original version. And then I'm going to go beat amazing v2. Okay, and then I'm going to, so Visual Studio is showing it as brown, so it's modified. So I want to put this in the repo as well. Git commit. It's a bit over the top, this, for one single file, but once we start getting into more complex code, you'll see why we need this. Second version. Okay, and if we ran that with our Python command, we can see that V2's appeared on the tab, so that's the change we made. But what if we wanted to roll back to that version? Okay, well, let's get rid of that terminal. And what we can do is we can go into source control, and we can either go and look at the original version, see the V2's disappeared there. We can either copy and paste that. This is probably the way I would do it. And then go back to my Explorer window to my current version. It's a very clumsy way of doing it. I'm sure there's a better way of doing that. New terminal. -M returned to original version. And then we can have a look at the log. Oops. There we go. So original, second version, return to original version. And then if I do my Python command again, we can see that amazing V2 has disappeared. So we can go backwards and forwards in time there. So in terms of the things that we've demonstrated today, we've initialized a repo. We've discussed why we need source control repos. We've showed you how to stage and commit changes, view the repository, and understand a bit of a basic Git workflow. It gets a lot more complicated. Okay.